In 2024, I made 3 predictions that the whole world said were impossible. I said Trump would win, I said he would start a war with Iran, and I said America would lose that war. All 3 came true. Now I have 8 new predictions. But before I give them to you, I want you to understand something important. Most people watch the world the same way you watch a movie. They follow the characters, they react to the drama, they pick sides, but they never stop to ask the single most important question: who wrote the script? Because what is happening in the world right now is not chaos. It is not confusion. It is not a bunch of accidents. It is a plan. And the moment you understand the plan, the predictions stop being shocking. They become obvious. So let us begin. My first prediction is that China will take Taiwan, but not through war, through a deal. And America will be the one who sets it up. Taiwan is not just a small island with 23 million people. It is the most important place on earth for making computer chips. A company called TSMC makes over 90% of the world's most advanced chips. The chips inside your phone, the chips inside every AI computer running right now, the chips inside every advanced weapon that America builds and sells. So why would America ever let this go? Here's where most people are completely wrong. Taiwan is not America's prize. Taiwan is America's problem. Because if China decided tomorrow to simply surround Taiwan with ships, not invade, not fire a single missile, just block all ships from going in or out, the entire world supply of computer chips collapses overnight. And so does everything else. The question is not whether America can afford to lose Taiwan. The question is whether America can afford to leave Taiwan in danger forever. And that is a question America has already quietly answered. TSMC is already building factories in Arizona. $65 billion committed to American soil. But this takes 10, maybe 15 years to finish. So what America actually needs is not Taiwan forever. America needs Taiwan safe and stable for the next decade, while it quietly moves the chip-making ability back home. Once that move is complete, Taiwan becomes something America is willing to trade. America tells China it supports peaceful unification. China promises 20 years of no military action. And by the time unification happens, America has already taken the only thing that made Taiwan worth protecting in the first place. You would say, what about the Taiwanese people? What about democracy? And I understand that feeling, but nations do not act on what is right. They act on what benefits them. America gets its chips, China gets its island, and the Taiwanese people get an arrangement like Hong Kong had, for however long that lasts. Within 2 years, an American official close to Trump, not Trump himself, will publicly say that the United States supports peaceful unification. The media will call it a betrayal. But if you understand the game, you will see it for exactly what it is. My second prediction is that Trump will serve a 3rd term. Constitutionally impossible, you will say. But I want you to stop and think carefully, because there is a difference between something being unusual and something being truly impossible. And when you read the Constitution very carefully, you will find that the gaps exist. The first path is this. Trump runs Don Jr. in 2028 and positions himself as vice president. Don Jr. wins. Don Jr. steps aside. Trump returns to the presidency. No normal person does this, but normal has never been the standard we apply to Trump. The second path is more serious. By 2028, America is not just at war with Iran, it is at war with everyone. And a president at war carries emergency powers that allow things which would otherwise be unthinkable, including stopping elections from happening. Zelensky did it in Ukraine, and nobody stopped him. So ask yourself this. If America is in the middle of a world war in 2028 and Trump declares a national emergency, who exactly stops him? The courts? The same Supreme Court where he appointed 3 out of 9 judges. Think about that carefully, because the people laughing at this prediction today are the same people who laughed when I said Trump would win in 2024. We all know how that ended. My third prediction is that Iran becomes a forever war and America brings back the draft. Most people completely misread what this war is actually about. They say nuclear weapons. They say Israel. They say terrorism. And while all those things play a role, none of them is the real reason. The real reason is the petrodollar. America's entire empire rests on one thing: the world using the US dollar to buy and sell energy. The moment that stops, the American empire ends, and Iran, connected to Russia and China, was threatening exactly that. So America had no choice but to act. But here is the problem. This war cannot end quickly, because Iran is not Iraq. Iraq was flat desert. You fly in, you cut off the head of the snake, and in 2 weeks it is over. Iran is like a mountain fortress. 92 million people, 31 separate military zones, each with their own leadership and command. You cannot cut the head off the snake because this snake has 31 heads. And so the war drags on. And to fight a war that drags on for years, possibly decades, you need soldiers, many of them. This is why, starting this December, every male between the ages of 18 and 24 in America will be automatically registered for the draft, not voluntarily. This law has already been passed. Most people do not know about it, but it is real. And it means an entire generation of young Americans is about to be told that their lives are no longer entirely their own. Think about what that does to a society. Think about what that does to families. Think about what that does to a country that is already more divided than at any point in living memory. My fourth prediction is that Germany breaks before it fights. The stated plan is for German troops to be on the ground in Ukraine by 2029. That is not a rumor. That is the official direction of European military policy. But those troops will never leave Germany. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Europe punished Russia by cutting off its energy. That decision had a consequence nobody wanted to say out loud. Germany had been running its entire economy on cheap Russian gas. When that gas disappeared, Germany was forced to buy American gas at 50% more money overnight. Factories shut down. Companies moved away. The economic decline in Germany has been worse than in France, worse than Italy, worse than Britain. The German people feel this every single month when their bills arrive. And when people feel that kind of pain, politics changes. A party called the AfD, which opposes the war and opposes the immigration pressure that has also been stretching Germany's society thin, is rising fast in the polls. If truly free elections were held in Germany today, they win. The leaders in Berlin know this. The leaders in Brussels know this. And yet the response has not been to slow down. Germany is speeding up its military buildup, more spending, more commitment. Troops in Ukraine by 2029. Putin understands exactly what this means. He does not need to defeat Germany on the battlefield. He just needs to drag the war out long enough for the pain to do his work for him. Because his endgame is not to conquer Germany militarily. It is to change Germany politically. A Germany that eventually votes to end the war and build a new relationship with Moscow. The real front line of this conflict is not in eastern Ukraine. It runs right through the middle of German living rooms. Most people are not paying attention to this. They should be. My fifth prediction is that the world moves toward a full AI-controlled civilian state. And I want to be very clear about what I mean, because this phrase gets used without people understanding how heavy it truly is. Digital ID and digital currency. Those two things together give any government on earth total and complete control over every single one of its citizens. Think about what that means right now. If a government wants to stop you from doing something, it has to pass a law. It has to enforce that law. It has to catch you breaking it. That takes time, institutions, and resources. But in a digital currency system, your bank account is simply programmed. You try to buy something the government disapproves of, and the payment is declined automatically. No court, no law, no police officer. Just a line of computer code. And the digital ID connects everything. Your purchases, your movements, your activity online, your friendships, all of it flowing into one giant database. All of it being studied by artificial intelligence. All of it being used to predict your behavior before you even act on it. This system is already fully running in China. Every citizen has a digital ID. Every transaction is watched. The governments of the West are not horrified by this. They are taking notes. My sixth prediction is that Israel achieves the Greater Israel Project. I understand this makes people uncomfortable. But I am asking you to set your emotions aside for a moment and simply look at the map. The Greater Israel Project is the belief, rooted in religious scripture, that the land stretching from the Nile River to the Euphrates River belongs to the Jewish people. And right now, as this war spreads across the Middle East, Israel is systematically removing every major military obstacle that stands between it and that vision. Hezbollah weakened, Hamas destroyed, Syria toppled, Iran under direct military pressure. The forces that are still capable of challenging Israel's dominance in the region are Turkey and Saudi Arabia. And Israel has already publicly said that Turkey is next. The moment America leaves the Middle East, and it will leave, there is no military force in the region strong enough to stop Israel. None. And Israel knows this, which is why it is doing everything in its power to keep this war going. Because every month this war continues, another obstacle is removed. I am not telling you this is right. I am not telling you this is fair. I am telling you this is what the map shows. And the map does not lie. My seventh prediction is that NATO and Russia will fight directly over Odessa. Russia does not want all of Ukraine. Russia wants the Donbas region, the land connection to Crimea, and Odessa, because Odessa sits on the Black Sea. And whoever controls Odessa controls Ukraine's entire access to the ocean. Once Odessa falls, Ukraine becomes a landlocked country. It loses the ability to ship out its grain. It loses its strategic importance. The war ends on Russia's terms. But NATO understands this too. And NATO knows that if Odessa falls, it is not just Ukraine that loses, it is NATO's reputation that collapses. Because NATO will have failed to stop Russia from achieving every single one of its goals. And a NATO that fails in Ukraine is a NATO the rest of the world stops respecting. So NATO will fight for Odessa. Not because Odessa itself cannot be replaced, but because losing Odessa means losing everything. And that is exactly the kind of desperate, high-stakes clash that turns a regional conflict into something much, much larger. My eighth prediction is that East Asia breaks into open conflict. And I want to explain the three specific flashpoints that will ignite it, because each one follows a completely different logic. Japan has publicly declared that Taiwan is central to its national security. And the reason is simple. If China takes Taiwan, Japan loses access to the Strait of Malacca. Japan has no natural resources. Everything it needs to function as an industrial country arrives by sea. Block that strait and Japan slowly begins to die economically. So Japan will fight, not because it wants to, but because it has no other choice. The second flashpoint is the Strait of Malacca itself. 90% of China's energy imports pass through it. America knows this, which is why it is positioning warships there right now. And China knows that America knows, which means both sides are already moving pieces into place for control of a waterway neither one can afford to lose. And then there is North Korea. Think about this using pure game theory. You are Kim Jong-un. America is fighting in the Middle East. Europe is consumed by Ukraine. Japan and China are circling each other over Taiwan. The missile defense systems that were protecting South Korea have been moved away. And South Korea is wealthy. Its population is packed tightly to Seoul, which sits just 20 minutes of artillery range from the North Korean border. If you are Kim Jong-un right now, you are not looking at a threat. You are looking at an opportunity. And history tells us very clearly what leaders like that do when they see one. If you have watched this far, you already think differently than most people. You are not following the drama. You are reading the script. Share this with someone who still thinks the world runs on accidents. Because the biggest danger right now is not war. It is not collapse. It is the number of people who are still completely asleep while all of this unfolds around them.